Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum dear students. I am Mr. Kadim Khan and I am a lecturer in the Institute of Computing, Kuwait University of Science and Technology. Today we will take lecture number 19 of the subject of visual programming, in which we are going to discuss the rich text box controls and the must text box control in Visual C#.NET. Dear students, these are the building blocks of graphical user interface. Rich text box controls is used to take the data from a multi-line text box, and also a rich text box is used to display the data in the format of multi-line text box. And the mask text box is used to display the data in a certain mask or the format. So here we will represent different sort of the examples with the help of rich text box and mask text box in the Visual C#.NET. This is the discussion agenda. It contains topics of the blocking the text box for the certain keys. This is another topics in which we will study that how you can block the text box that a certain keys will be restricted. That means that the text box will not allow a certain keys to be pressed for typing the data into the text box. And then we have the rich text box control in the C#.NET with the examples in the Visual Studio. And then we have the mask text box control with the programming examples in the C#.NET. Now, sometimes we do not allow our users to enter the data or restrict the data. For example, if a student is asked to enter his marks or her marks, then the students can enter in the alphabetical format as well. For example, student marks is ABC, which is not which is invalid marks. Now, basically, if the students enters the marks in ABC, he or she must have to be restricted here. So the student should exactly enter the marks what is required here. So for this purpose, we block the text box or certain keys that, for example, if the student is entering the mask, so only alphabetical keys will be blocked while the numeric keys will be not blocked here. So here we will use the e.ended property of e class. That is, e is exactly the attribute, the object of the event args e. So which represents the events here that which key has been pressed here. Handled is equal to true is used to block the keys here. So it's temporarily blocks the keys here. So the next lines assesses whether the keys press is a letter of an alphabet or whether a lower or uppercase, or if it is then it handles that the setting is reversed here. So basically this e.ended is equal to true means that the certain keys are blocked here, and all this is provided in the if statements here. Now this also allows the keys to be pressed to the text box to be displayed here. If it fails the test, the blocks on this key press remains true. So mean that when e.ended become false, then the keys are allowed here to be pressed here. Now, for example, we are going to enter from A to Z small, that is the small alphabets, and A to Z capital alphabets. So here you please don't enter A to Z or capital A to Z. So only 0 to 9 digits are allowed here. So means that only numerical digits will be enabled, while alphabetical digits will be disabled here. Also, please don't enter number. Here, from a small ABC up to Z and from capital ABC to up to XYZ will be enabled here. Means that you can enter any alphabetical values here. That is, for example, enter your name, enter your, for example, country name. So you can only enter the alphabetical keys, not the numerical keys. Now how it works? Basically, when we drag drop a text box onto our form. Then we will right click here, then we will go to the event sections and you need to create the key press events there. We will perform this example practically in the Visual Studio, but first you need to understand the code here. Private void text box 1 underscore key press object sender comma key press event ergse. So this is a function which is represented in events here. Private means that this is a private function. It can be only accessible within the class, but you cannot access that outside of the class. Void means its return type is void, means that it doesn't return anything. This is the event name and event is the key press which is associated with the text box 1. Object sender means that which controls is sending the event, and the control is here text box 1. Key press event ergse, that means here the e objects which is the object of the key press event ergs class, that means that where the event has been arised here, from which key the event has been arised, where e represents the key here. Now if e.key character is greater than or equal to 65 and e.key character is less than or equal to 123, then e.ended is equal to true. Now this means that blocks all the keys starting their ASCII characters from 65 and up to 122 and enable other keys there. So you cannot press these keys. If you will press these keys, these will be non-printable here. You cannot print them. Secondly, there is another text box. So you will create another events text box 2 underscore key press object sender comma key press event ergse. So this is the private function which represents the event, means that it's only is accessible within the class. Void means its return type is nothing, it will not return anything. Next one is the key press event of the text box 2. This is the name of the event. Object sender means that the object which is responsible for sending the event, and the object is text box 2. And the key press event ergse is representing the key which will be pressed. So E represents the object of the key press event ergs, which is used to represent the keys which will be pressed using this text box 2. Now here, if E.key character is greater than 48 and E.key character is less than or equal to 57, which represents the numerical keys, that is from 0 to 9, for these 48 to up to 57, for these 10 keys 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, all these keys E.ended true means that don't take input for these 10 keys. So means that the text box will be blocked for 0 to 9 keys. Now I am showing you here, the ASCII tables, then you will understand the slides. So from 65 to 122 we can get these keys. 65, this one is 65, which is A, and then B, C, and so on. When you will go to 122, that is small z, and capital Z is up to 90. So from 65 to 122 we have blocked all the keys. Similarly, if we check from 48 to 57, then from 48 to 57, that is 48 is 0 and up to 57 is 9. So these keys are blocked for the ASCII keys starting from 48 to up to 57. Now all these keys are blocked here. Now dear students, we will implement this example. So for this purpose, click on the escape and start your Visual Studio. So I'm starting my Visual Studio here. So this is my Visual Studio 2019 version, which is the latest one. So when you will click the Visual Studio, meanwhile the Visual Studio will be available for you to program this example. Now we need to create the new project, so just click here to create the new project. So we are here creating the new project in the Microsoft Visual Studio 2019 version, where we will take two different text boxes and two different labels controls, and we will block the text boxes for the certain keys here. So I have clicked here on the create a new project link here on the Visual Studio. So Visual Studio is creating a project here first. Now click on the languages. If you have not selected the C#, click on C# to select the C# language. And I need to create the Windows applications. So that's why I will type here the word Windows. So type here the Windows. That is the Windows application. I need to create the Windows application. I will type here the word Windows application. So I will type here the Windows. Now our Windows application will be created. This is the Windows Forms. You will select here Windows Forms. Click on the next. When you will click on the next, you will be asked to provide the name of the project. Here the name of the project is Windows Form Apps 11 by default. You can change that name. For example, I am changing it. But this is the lecture number 19. So here Windows application lecture 19. Okay, and click on the create buttons to create the Windows application for Windows for lecture number 19 examples. Meanwhile, the Visual Studio will create an empty form where you will ask to design the forms from the toolbox here. So Visual Studio has created an empty form for me. So I will just minimize the size of the forms. This is the toolbox. From the toolbox, I need to drag drop one label control and one text box control. So I have drag drop one label control and one text box controls from the toolbox. So you have to resize the label control and the text box controls. Now click on the label controls, click on the properties to change its properties, and for example I will type here interviewer name. So here the user will enter his or her name. Also I need another controls. For this purpose you just copy these controls and Control C then Control V, so that you will get another copy of these two controls. Just click here and change its property interviewer marks. So I will write interviewer marks. Now if you want to change the font properties of this control, just select all these controls and click on the font. Click here to change the font of these controls. So now the font dialogs will appear. This is the font dialogs. The size of this text is now 8. I want to change it to 12 and want to make it bold. So click here. Now you can see that the font has been changed successfully. You can resize this control. Now I need to associate the event with this control. So right click on the first text box, go to the properties and click on this event icon. Here you can see that this is the event. I click here, click on the key press event. So go up and double click here to create the key press event. So I will double click here. So Textbox 1 underscore key press event has been created here. Now, as like here in the examples, we have created that please enter your name here and enter your marks here. So you need to write here that if key dot key character is greater than or equal to the ASCII key for the small a is starting here. You can see that it starts from the 65. So 65 and I will use the AND operator here, and key dot key character is less than or equal to 122. So my if condition is now complete here. Now here I will write key dot handled is equal to true. That means block. The keyboard for the other characters. That means that here the keyboard will be blocked here. Now again click on the designs here and also click on the second text box. Go to the properties. This is the property of second text box. Go up here and double click here to the key press events. You will get another events here. So again you need to write the if statement key dot key character is greater than or equal to. Now the keys for 0 to 9 starts from the 48 up to 57. So it's greater up to 42 and key dot key character is less than or equal to 65. Then similarly e dot handled is equal to true. That means block the keyboard for these characters. Means that only these characters are allowed and the block keyboard for the other characters. So now I need to block the keyboard from 48 to 57 because you can see that if you want to block the keyboard for the numerical keys, the ASCII key for the 0 is 48 and the ASCII code for the 9 is 57. So here I have written here that 48 to 57 and the ASCII key for the alphabets starts from 65 up to 122. So here I will write 122. Now our program logic is now complete. Now I need to compile this program here. To compile and run the examples, click on the start screen buttons here. Meanwhile, you can see that the program is now compiled. Here it's asked for the name. So only small a or b, similarly up to capital A or capital Z, that is allowed. But here the other keys will not be allowed here. That is, the numerical keys will not be allowed here. So I will write here, for example, it's from 65. First I need to stop at 65 to 122 because here the ASCII character starting from capital A is 65 and ending up to small z is 122, and the ASCII value for 0 is 48 up to 9, that is 57. So 48 to 57. So that is the 48 to 57. Now my program is completed. So just click on the green button to execute the examples. For example, here I can type AA, similarly small to small z, or capital A capital Z. But I cannot. If I will type here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, that is also allowed. So we have to check that whether the ASCII characters are that is the false values. So we have to make it true, because still it is allowing the keyboard to accept the key. So that's why I have to convert it into true. Now, for example, here the ASCII values, that is the keys, are not allowed here, because the key characters is starting from 65 up to 122. These keys are not allowed here. Now press on the start button to execute the code. Now type here some name, for example, Ali. It is accepting, for example, but if you will type any numerical keys, it will not be accepted. Similarly, you can type say some numerical values, but you cannot type here ABC to Z. So that is the example of how to block the keyboard. We will resume our slides for the next topic. Next topic is very much important, that is called rich textbox controls in C#.NET. The rich textbox controls is a special controls which is used to load the RTF files in the rich textbox. So it is in a multi-line textbox controls which stores on the rich text format files, that is the RTF files. Also, in the RTF files, we have the multiple items such as the contents, which includes the paragraphs and the numerical data. Similarly, we have another paragraph. Similarly, we have the images and the tables in the rich textbox controls. Now, this is the example of the rich textbox controls. Here, the example is this one, that this is a files which is stored in the E directory, and the file name is file2.rtf. Now, when we will click this, the load RTF buttons, then this event will be triggered, and the event is private void button 1 underscore click object senders comma event argse. This is the private event. That means that it is only accessible within the class. Void means its return time is nothing. You can see there is no return times. Button 1 underscore click is a function, and it is in a click event of button 1. Object sender means that the button is responsible to send the event, and event argse means a special key or some shortcut keys, or any, for example, enter keys or any other key which will trigger the events. And the body of the function contains one line of code, that is rich textbox 1, which is the instance of this textbox rich textbox. And load file function is used to load a file which is stored in the E directory, and the file name is file.rtf. And this @ is used to provide this only one slash. If you remove this @ symbol, you need to provide another slash here in the path name. Now, dear student, we will execute these examples. For this purpose, click the escape button. Now, I click on the design mode. Just I will implement this example on the same form. Now, go to the textbox toolbox here and drag drop one rich textbox controls onto the form. So I have drag drop one rich textbox onto the form here. You can resize your rich textbox. So I have resized the rich textbox here. You can align all these controls with each other. You can see that these are now aligned. And also I need one buttons control. So for this purpose, I just drag drop one buttons controls here. Right click on the button controls, click on the properties, so that you will go to the properties. So last time we have utilized the events. So again you will click this icons so that you can switch towards the properties and change the text properties of the button one, that load RTF file. Now RTF file will be loaded here. Now to create the event associated with this button, double click on it. When you will double click on it, you can see that the event has been created, which is the button 1 underscore click event. Now here we need to write the code. So our RichTextbox is RichTextbox1 and dot here load file. Load file is a function which will be used here to load the files. And in the path here as a parameter, I will provide the path of the file which will be required to load what is the contents of this files. This is the RTF file which I want to read into the RichTextbox controls. You can see that there are images, there are certain lists, and also there is one table in this RTF files. Just close it. Okay, the file path is in the E directory, so that's why I will provide the E directory here. So first I need to provide @, then the file will be provided in the string. So file name is file2.rtf. Now my code is complete. You can see that code is e file2.rtf. Now click on the start button to execute the code. Just click here and click on the load RTF files buttons. Now you can see that RTF file has been loaded here and all contents are available here. Some contents are not available because I need to resize this RTF files, then the contents will be available. So for this purpose, click here and resize the RichTextbox, then again double click here and compiles. Now you can see that full file is now readable here. This is the example of the RichTextbox controls. Now we will resume our slides. The next important control is called mask textbox controls. Mask textbox control, as its name indicates, it provides you the data into different formats, and it is used to provide different masks for the inputs, such as the phone numbers, short date, time, zip code, etc. So you need to set the mask properties of the mask textbox controls, and there you will define the different masks here. Now there are also characters casing properties of the textbox control. For example, if you want to type the uppercase, lowercase or normal text property of the textbox, then you can do it here. Also there are the scroll bars. If you want to display the vertical, horizontal or both scroll bars of the textbox, when multi-line property is true, then it will provide you the scroll bars including the vertical, horizontal and both. If you provide the passwords characters, then you will have to provide the password characters here, and the password characters will ask for the password characters, that is *x or plus plus or minus minus here. Okay, this is the examples. For example, password characters will ask for the password. Multi-line text box will have the multi-line text box controls. Similarly, uppercase only has this one, and mask text box will take data into this one format. And when you will click it, all the data will be displayed on the message box. So here, multi-lines, I am a student will be print here. Password is 123456, and uppercase is ABCDEFGHIJ, and similarly mask is the certain values for the mask. Now when the button is clicked, this code will be executed. This is the private void btn display underscore data underscore clicks. So this is the event which is the private event, and its return time is nothing, that is the void, and object sender is sending the event here, and the sender is the button, and event argse represents the particular key which will be pressed here. Next we have created the string text box data, that is means this is the empty strings. Now empty strings plus string dot format multi-lines 0 to 9, and the data is taken from the txt multi-lines text mask text box. Similarly, we have the passwords which will be in fact concatenated with this strings, and the concatenated strings will be taken from the txt passwords text box. Similarly, we have another concatenations here, and the text will be taken from the text uppercase dot text. Similarly, we have text box data plus is equal string dot format mask text box data dot text. That means that this empty strings will be in fact now the concatenation of the three different data which is in fact taken from the text box. And message box dot show means that all these strings will be displayed on the message box. Here's text box data, which is the string variable here, and this will in fact creates the title of the text message box. Now, dear students, we will implement these examples here. So for this purpose, click on the escape. So when I have escaped here, I will in fact use the current example for this example as well. So for this purpose, you need to resize your window so that you will create an extra space here. Click on the text box and drag drop one mask text box here, and also drag drop one label here. Now you can resize this mask text box. For example, here I will write that enter a password. Enter your password. Now if I want to enter a password here, so I will change the password character property here. This is the password character property. So in the password character property, I will type some characters which will be displayed in the form of the password. So I want to type *. Also, if you want to change the font property of this control, so click here and click on these small buttons. Now I need the font of this is 12 here. Now just run here and execute the example. Now if you will type any password, the password will be appeared in the form of the *, but actually the data has been typed here. This is the example of the password characters here. Now if you want to create another mask controls, or you need another mask, just copy it and paste it, and then click on this mask text box, go to the property, click on the mask property and click here. If you need certain inputs in these formats, you will select one of them. For example, I want to type the time here. Just select it and click on OK. Automatically, you will be able to type here the times. So here you can write it enter US time. Enter time in US format, American format time. Okay. Now you will be, in fact, you will type the time in the US format here. Now you can see that the format is already displayed here. Click on the start and click on the run. Now here you can type any password, but here you will provide the US times. For example, now it is 05. Okay. You also need to change the password character or remove the password character from here. So click on the properties and delete the password character from this text box. Now run the examples. You will now type here the US times here. For example, this is 12 For example, this is 0, 5. When you will type here, then you can type the full times. For example, this is 12 and 35 p.m. So this represents the time here. You cannot type further. You can see that keys are disabled here. If you will type here, you will be not allowed to type here. So this is the master textbox control. Dear students, you have to discuss. You have to implement this example through yourself. So if you have any problem, you can ask through the email or through the question as well. So dear student, this is the end of this lectures. These are two reference books. The first one is the Pro C# 5.0 and the .NET 4.5 frameworks, Expert's Voice in the .NET 6 editions, Kindle edition. This is very book because it is the expert edition. And Learn C# fast. This is a little bit basics books where you can learn the C# very fastly, and it is the ultimate course books, beginners to advanced. So from simple to advanced programming, you can use this book. Also, if you have any question, you can ask the question through the email. My email is m.kadim@kust.edu.pk. I will wait for your question and will respond immediately as well as I get your emails. Thank you very much.